G'day guys and welcome to Into the Night. Today I'm going to do a bit of a comparison video between the Warrior X Turbo from Olight and the Odin Turbo from Olight. I've had some questions about how they compare, especially on low mode, so I thought I'd put a bit of a video together so people can see how they perform. When I'm looking for buying a torch for hunting, these are some of the things that I consider. First of all, the brightness. How much brightness can you get out of it? So starting with the Warrior X Turbo, it comes in at 1100 lumens, that's on high, or on 150 lumens on low. There's only two brightness settings with both of these torches. They're designed mainly for hunting. And the Odin, it comes in at 330 lumens on high and 90 on low. But the difference is with this Odin Turbo, it's not LED technology like the Warrior X. It is laser or LEP. So it actually uses a laser in the end to keep the light punching out further. Whereas this one's got a deep reflector and a LED in the bottom. The head diameter on the Warrior X Turbo is a 58mm or 2.28 inches, and on the Odin Turbo the head diameter is only 31mm or 1.22 inches. So there's a fair size difference, and when you're mounting them on the top of a rifle scope, having a much smaller light is better than a bigger one. But second of all, I always look at the weight. So the Warrior X Turbo, it's 291 grams as it is, as opposed to this one is 210 grams. But this one, to mount it, you can use a figure eight, one of those figure eight mounts, but this one comes with its own mount. It just slides into the slot and you give it a push and it clicks in, and it's nice and firm. Although one thing I do find, there is a little bit of movement in there sideways. It doesn't change where it points, but it's just, you can shake it, you do hear a bit of a wobble, but then you can turn that little lever and that locks it so you can't undo it. Push the button and it releases. It's also got a slide on the side, so it goes on there like that. That's a Picatinny, mounts onto a Picatinny rail. You push the button, it slides off. Whereas this one here, off the top of my head, I think it's about 26mm body diameter. I'd make this mount as well, which I generally run on that, the Warrior X Turbo. It's called the EWM25. So there's your 24 to 27mm. Can fit in there, and it's just spring loaded there, and you just put it on the Picatinny rail, so it's an offset mount. I use that on my Chris DMK22. I put it on, you put it underneath the front there and do it up, and the Warrior X Turbo sits right up near the front, so you don't get any glare back on your barrel. That's one problem with mounting your Warrior X Turbo on top of a scope, I find, is you get a lot of glare back in the scope from your barrel unless you've got the light far enough back that it shades. So if you got it mounted on a scope, I like to mount it back further, so the front of your scope actually creates a shadow over your barrel. As you mount it forward, because there's a fair bit of spill off this one, and you get a lot of glare back in your scope. Whereas the Odin Turbo, it's a very tight beam on it, and it projects out a long way. They advertise to have a 1050 metre beam, as opposed to this one. The Warrior X Turbo has a 1 kilometre beam, a 1000 metre. This one here, it definitely shines that far, but realistically you wouldn't be using it out to that distance. Even on low, This thing here is supposed to still go out to 600 meters on low, advertised, but realistically, using it through a rifle scope, I could comfortably take a shot for 150 easy out to probably 200, 250 meters would be sort of your max on low, but you turn it straight up to high. There's a low, you bump it to high, and you can easily see out. Taking a shot out to 300 meters, it's be no trouble at all. As this one here is actually very similar, sort of on par with the Odin, but you get a lot more spill with this one. This one here works well for close up targets because it's got so much spill, whereas this one here is ideal for putting on a more of a longer range rifle like a 223 or something like that. You can get out to a bit more distance and take some longer shots at night, but you don't have all the extra spill, so you don't get a light shining on your barrel and reflection back in your scope. It's a lot smaller size, and it's pretty light too. So this weight with this mount, it's 249 grams with all that together. Whereas if you get this and you get this other mount from Olight, the offset mount, it's these two together is 338 grams. Or if you use one of those figure 8 clamps, I weighed them together and it's 395 grams. So 0.4 of a kilo you're adding on top of your scope. Whereas this one here is a fair bit lighter, but it still gets really good distance. Probably actually better looking through the scope with this one as opposed to the Warrior X Turbo from my experience, but I'll check it out later and when it gets dark, and I'll show you some footage then. For the run times, this one here, the Odin Turbo, on higher mode you're supposed to be able to get 30 minutes before it starts stepping down the brightness, and this one here you only get 6 minutes before it starts stepping down in brightness. Obviously if you switch it off and it cools down a bit, you switch it back on, it'll be back up to full brightness again for another 6 minutes and so on. But on low mode, this one here, it only runs for 7.5 hours on low, and the Warrior X Turbo is supposed to run for 12.5 hours, but it's only putting out 150 lumens on low mode, whereas this one here is only putting out 90, but maybe the laser uses a bit more power than the typical LEDs. So anyway, we'll wait till she gets dark and I'll see you a bit later. Okay, so that's looking through my rifle scope with the Odin Turbo on low. The closest target, orange dot, is at 100. Second one is at 150, third is at 200, and you can just make out the one at the end is 250 meters. You could take a shot out to 250 meters without too much trouble at all. That's the Odin Turbo and low. Oh, look at that, there's an owl flying down there too. Alright, I'll show you on high, the Odin Turbo. The first clay target is at 100, then 150, then 200. You can see the one right down the back is at 250 meters. It does look better than that through the scope, obviously, but you can get the idea. Okay, so I've mounted the torch underneath the stock, sort of a bit dodgily, but it's enough so it's not shining on the barrel, and I think it does improve. You can see a bit better because you haven't got any glare coming back. Putting the rifle up on, no, they're putting the torch, sorry, up on top of the scope here. You get a lot of glare shines back in your scope, so we'll see how that goes. So this is the Warrior X Turbo on low. It's not focusing real good, but you can see the targets, they stand out. That first one is at 100 meters, second is at 150, and you can just make out the third at 200. put it onto high. This is the Warrior X Turbo on high, so you can definitely see the difference. It carries a lot further. You could easily take that shot out to 250 metre mark or beyond. I wouldn't be going over 300 metres with it. It's sort of be pushing it to its limit. There's a fair bit of dust in the air tonight too. Definitely restricts your vision a bit and how far you can stretch out in with a good torch. So as far as these two torches compare, they're both very good torches. I highly recommend them both. But when it comes to shooting torches, I think distance is a big part of it. And I think with these two on turbo mode, they're both fairly well on par. This one has more spill, this one has a very concentrated beam because of its laser. But when it comes to low mode, that's where this one shines that little bit brighter and it goes that little bit more distance. So I hope this has been of some help to some people, and if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you all on the next one.